Welcome to our series Manage Well and Get Preserved about digital preservation of research data. We are going to talk about different things that are relevant for you to know and think about if you want to take good care of research data, so good that it can be preserved even for future generations of researchers. Still, most things we cover are actually important in all diligent data management. We will start now with how to make sustainable choices when choosing data to store and preserve, and which are good formats for this.
Have you ever lost data? There are actually many threats to our valuable data. They might be deleted by mistake if we are not careful, or computers can crash in fatal ways. Fortunately, this can be prevented by careful planning, backups, and other good practices in data management during research. But as years pass, hardware will not only fall apart due to old age, also technologies themselves become obsolete, as does file formats and software that can handle those formats. Data can also be destroyed in environmental disasters or other calamities, or by pure ignorance. Even natural languages can be forgotten. Basically, data is just a set of bits, zeros and ones. We need lots of instructions to be able to turn all this data to information. It is important to understand that digital preservation is not just storing bits somewhere and forgetting about them for years, but it is a continuous activity that needs constant attention. In bit-level preservation, the bits are preserved by following the integrity of the files. In logical preservation, the data usability is preserved. Metadata and file formats are migrated to newer formats by following a preservation plan when the format becomes obsolete. In semantical preservation, the context and purpose of the data is preserved by keeping the descriptive metadata up to date. Digital preservation requires knowledge about technology and the actual content, and therefore it is a challenge that requires close collaboration.
To be able to make correct interpretations of data in the future, we need rich documentation and information about the content and context of the data. This usually means a lot of work and effort. Even if we can create automated processes for metadata creation, it takes thorough planning to put everything in place and ensure that things are running well. From this follows that we cannot preserve everything, but we need to make choices. We have to choose which datasets we want to preserve and preferably take extra good care of those datasets from the start. This is why data management planning is so important and wise to do well in advance, even though you often will have to revise and change your plans as research proceeds. Data appraisal is not simple, but there are some guidelines we can look at. Firstly, data should be possible to reuse. There is no use in putting effort in preserving data that cannot be used ever again. Use might be hindered by rights or legal issues. Data cannot be preserved if the immaterial rights are not taken care of, or if it contains information that is illegal to store for, say, GDPR or ethical reasons. There might also be licensing issues related to the data that are difficult to solve if it's stored in a proprietary format or you need some external closed software to make data accessible and possible to process. Secondly, data should be intelligible, that is, documented in such a way that we can understand what it means, use it appropriately, and make correct conclusions based on it. All values, codes, and variables should be explained in such a way that they are impossible to misunderstand. The dataset should be as self-explanatory as possible. This also covers the provenance and context of the data, A researcher with basic understanding of the domain should be able to assess whether the data is suitable for a specific use. How was it created? Where does it come from? Can I understand all things that might be relevant to make the correct interpretations and conclusions based on this dataset? If this information is not available, it might be that it is not worthwhile preserving the dataset at all. Thirdly, what is the relevance and value of this dataset? Is it unique, or can it be recreated? How much resources have been put into creating it? Can this dataset contribute to some bigger context, or maybe to creation of new knowledge in either basic research or help in solving some vicious problems? Fourthly, what is the quality of this data and its metadata? Is it coherent? Is it checked and validated? The quality assessment of the documentation is an essential part of the appraisal. Is the documentation thorough enough? And what is actually good enough? What is enough? For preservation, it's generally a lot. There are usually huge amounts of tacit knowledge among the researchers and many things that need to be documented. And this is something that often has to be done together. Data stewards and researchers have to bring their knowledge and insights to the table and find out the best solutions in cooperation.
To make migrations from a file format to another possible, only a limited set of file formats can be supported. This is a mandatory approach in digital preservation. The file formats needs to be selected carefully. Let's take a look at some of the evaluation criteria that can be used when selecting proper formats. How easy it is to get information about the file format. How widely the file format is adopted for digital preservation in other services. What is the degree of backward and forward compatibility in the file format? Are there any protections against file corruption? What is the frequency of new version releases? Is the file format tied, for example, to a particular software or device? How well the file format has passed a thorough standardization process. In Finland, the following scale is used when evaluating the criteria. The criteria is fulfilled well. The criteria is fulfilled well, but there are costs related to it. For example, the technical documentation of the file format may be behind a payment wall. The criteria is fulfilled moderately. The criteria is not fulfilled at all. A combination of these may also be used. There are some cases where the criteria may be fulfilled well for a certain type of content, but not at all in another type of content. You can find this and more information on digitalpreservation.fi. The criteria and the scale are originally formed and brought to use by the National Digital Library Initiative, and these are based on the reports created by the Library of Congress, the UK National Archives, the National Library of the Netherlands, and the Library and Archives Canada. The specifications of the digital preservation services set various requirements for the content and its metadata. These specifications are updated annually in close collaboration with the partner organizations and are available at digitalpreservation.fi. The specifications contain two different kinds of file formats: recommended formats and formats acceptable for transfer. The recommended file formats are those that are estimated to be usable for a long time, whereas the formats acceptable for transfer are formats that may not be very good for digital preservation, but various partner organizations already have a large amount of content in these formats. Additionally, common restrictions to any file format are that files must not use password protection, other encryption techniques, nor digital rights management technologies. Files must not be compressed separately, and files must not lack any external components required for its presentation. However, sometimes there may be exceptions which are always negotiated on a case-by-case basis. We have also specified how the selected metadata formats are used and how the content is packaged and transferred for digital preservation. For example, the specification defines mandatory and conditional requirements, for example for descriptive, technical, and provenance metadata, and these need to be linked together with the files in structural metadata. The strict rules enable fully automatic validation in ingest and automated processing in preservation actions. The descriptive metadata is an essential part of the semantical preservation. The provenance metadata contains information about all events which may have had an impact on the content, for example, describing the hardware and software that was used to create the content. Particularly, the specifications consist of various general requirements for the technical metadata of a file. For example, identifier, file format, checksum, and creation time. Additionally, file format specific technical metadata is required for various formats, for example, image dimensions and other image-related metadata for image files. The packaging service included in the digital preservation service for research data is able to create most of the required technical metadata automatically and is able to perform the actual packaging. It would be good to think about sustainable file formats and metadata already when you start your data management planning. You can always be in touch with us if you have questions.
So, there are many things to consider if you want your data to be good quality and eligible for preservation. But they are not that difficult if you are aware of them from the start. Follow our series and you will get more useful information. Next time we will talk about persistent identifiers. How can you ensure your data can be found and cited in the future? Join us again next time.